I'm guessing not. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call to order this March 19th meeting of our Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee meeting. And thank you all for coming. I think we'd all rather be outside today. It's such a lovely day, but we'll press on and get back out there. So thank you. Just do a quick moment of reflection to think about today's proceedings. And thank you. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof for today's agenda? And seeing nothing, I'll move on to public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and by contacting clerk@meaford.ca or 519-538-1060, extension 1110. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. And today we are fortunate to have a presentation. We have Savannah Myers joining us from Grey County. Welcome, Savannah. Just push.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. It is a beautiful sunny day and I could talk to you all afternoon, but I won't, I promise. You can hurry me along when you need to hurry me along. But I thought it was a great opportunity and I really appreciate the invitation, Rob, to be able to come here and talk with you today. Our department published our very first annual report, which is really exciting. So I was here last year talking to you about the master plan that we developed in 2023 and we started implementing in 2024. So this annual report oversees that master plan and talks about the initiatives, the programs, the advancements, and the results that we saw last year. So if I could take a little bit of time to talk through some of those things and, really talk about the work that we did to define our role, I think that would be great. So when I was here in August, one of the things that I did share was that, as an economic development, tourism and culture, EDTC, I won't say the whole name every time, but as a department, we made a commitment through our master plan, and I'm going to read it out. It's right on the table of contents page. So do I need to ask you, Sue, to slide down? Oh, sorry. On the grass, we see, so this is the commitment. I'm just going to read it out. So as the EDTC team, we will foster a systems approach and work in concert with our colleagues and partners to share resources, build capacity, and bring value. We will focus on internal and external communications and be the best leaders, ambassadors, and champions we can possibly be. So that is our commitment to working with all of our member municipalities, our community partners, businesses, and so forth as we move forward through the master plan implementation. If you click to the next page, thank you. So in the executive summary, part of what we made a real commitment to do through this work with the county coming out of the pandemic, we realized that we needed to have a great reset. And that's what our master plan is called, the Great Reset. And it was really meant to get us out of the weeds. So that is something that all through the pandemic, county level, all of our municipalities, all the partners, everyone went straight down to help businesses one-on-one, which is what we needed during that time. We were in crisis mode. We are not in crisis mode anymore. We needed to get ourselves back into the roles that we need to play, where at the county, we're taking a broader regional approach, a regional view, understanding what trends are there and working with upper levels of government and industry organizations to be able to bring that information back. Our municipalities, we need the boots on the ground with the eyes and the ears open, talking to businesses, understanding exactly what's happening in your communities. Because across Grey County, we have 9 very unique municipalities and all have different opportunities, all have different challenges, but there's a lot that everyone shares in common. So it's that in common place, that's where the county really has a role to play in building that capacity so that the work can be done on the ground. Because when investment does happen here, whether it's a current business or a new business coming in, it's not happening in Grey County, it's happening in Meaford or in Owen Sound or in Georgian Bluffs. It's happening in the communities on the ground. So that's why having both of those roles happening simultaneously is really important. We can save time for our municipalities by preparing that kind of resource toolkit, bigger, broader initiatives, doing the research, having the data, all of those roles so that it's available for use on the ground. So that was a real shift in the perspective. And we put right in here in the executive summary that we were very meaningful and purposeful about pulling ourselves out of the weeds, because that's not where we are supposed to be at the county. We do have a quote in here, and this came out of our Economic Development Leadership Forum, which we'll talk about on the next page, but I do want to read this one out as well, because it really kind of encapsulates what we're doing and where we're going and why this regional perspective is so important. And Dan Matheson is who was our keynote speaker for that event. And he said, be bold, make a long-term vision, and understand that some decisions that you make today will have an incredible unintended consequence for the better as you go along your journey. Communicate well, build a big tent, get lots of partners in there, nobody's in a silo. So at the county level, that's what we are trying to do. We are building our tent. We are trying to work with all of our partners, bring everybody together to be able to share the resources, because we know right across the board, we are all dealing with limited resources, people capacity, dollars, all of the things that we need for economic development is limited. So when we come together, we can make a real difference. On the next page, we talk about a regional overview, and year one of the master plan was very much about building the foundation. It was our foundational year. Because we had been in the weeds for so long, there was a ton of information that we did not have at our fingertips anymore. We didn't have a community profile for Grey County. That is economic development 101, but we were not able to do that when we were all on the ground. So last year, we spent a lot of time making sure that these items were in place and getting the right data, the right access to toolkits that we could, so that we would be able to have this available. And now we are there. We've got our 101 completed, which is good. But through that, the regional overview, I do want to draw your attention to this, because it is really the reason why we're doing the things that we're doing now in 2025 and going forward. So when you look at the aqua bar at the bottom, our pyramid, it's what it's supposed to be, is a pyramid. That is not a pyramid. It looks like an inukshuk. It is very, very top heavy. And that's because 35% of our population are 60 and older in Grey County. So one of the questions that we were asked during our forum in the fall was, this is rural Ontario. We have always looked like this. We have always been older. We haven't. The bar above it in gray, that is what 2001 looked like. So there is your boomer organization, or your boomer demographic, 25 to 44. That was your workforce. And that's why we did not have the employment challenges then that we have today. So even though we have seen lots of young families come to the area, and I know you're seeing it in your schools, we've got portables everywhere, we are absolutely attracting, and our growth is increasing, but not to the level to be able to replace the boomers who will age out of this world. So that's where we are right now. And it's a real concern for us. We have all of these growth projections coming down from the province, but a projection is only projection. We need to be able to understand what's happening on the ground. Do we have the land available for us to be able to attract new business, be able to allow the business we have today to expand, to grow that workforce, so that we have a population coming in, being attracted to the area to help fill that gap, so that our businesses can remain and they can grow. So that is something that really came loud and clear out of the data when we were looking at it as part of that foundational work. And then the other piece, our core sectors, we are committed to these core sectors. They have been our core sectors for a very long time, and we do not see them going anywhere. Agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism are our base economy. They are the powerhouse here in Grey County. The emerging sectors that we have in healthcare and clean energy and creative industries are right on the cusp, and we're seeing significant growth there. We're starting to pay more and more attention to, but these are the three that will always be our foundation. So we will always be committed to working in this area. As mentioned about the growth, we are now at 109,000 in Grey County. So in the last 3 years, based on the intercensal data that came out, we have grown 10% in the last 3 years. So the growth that you are feeling is very real. We have just shy of 13,000 businesses. So we have gained 3,000 businesses since 2021. So we know, again, that entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well here. There is a good market here. And our tourists are around 3 million a year. But with their return visits, so those are the unique tourists. Every time they come back, they count as a new visit coming to the area. So those combined are 21 million visits across Grey County per year is what we're seeing. On the next page, we talk about the 10-year vision. you'll notice a lot in the annual report, we've pulled a lot out of the master plan, so we don't lose sight of the document that is directing everything that we are doing. That master plan is giving us the ability to say yes and no to projects, to prioritize projects based on what council endorsed for us to move forward as a region. So that is in there so that, again, we don't lose sight. So on the next slide, we talk about priority number 1 under the master plan, and that's leadership and collaboration. This is where we're looking to build cohesion and build Team Gray. So the leadership forum that I had mentioned that we hosted in the fall is priority number 1 under here. We have another one coming up in April, and that is the Warden's Economic Development Leadership Luncheon, and then the forum will come again in the fall. So every 6 months, we are looking to have an opportunity with all of the councillors from across Grey County and senior leadership in the municipality so that we can have conversations and start building our cohesive voice. Some of the demographics and some of the statistics that I already shared were part of this. It was, getting ready for this leadership and collaboration work where we were really digging into that foundation. And that's also where we looked into our investment readiness, really looked into our investment readiness. So when we applied filters across the region to understand what kind of property do we have available today that is actually investment ready, there were 59 potential sites across the county that were 1 acre or over. When we applied the filters to bring us to the point of actually being investment ready, which is how we work with Invest Ontario to understand, there are 7 investment ready sites today in Grey County. Now, some of the sites between that 7 and 59, there's not a lot of work to be done, but there is some, and other sites have significant work, whether it's servicing or rezoning. And that is absolutely key in trying to understand where we're going to go and how will we be ready for when new business or business expansion that's current wants to actually occur. Today, we're not in good shape to enable that growth in our communities. When we get together in April, one of the conversations that really came out of the leadership forum in November was around servicing water, wastewater capacity, and how on earth can municipalities afford to do this work ahead? Where is the private sector in that? How do we do this planning? How do we prepare for it? So as part of that, we're actually bringing EPCOR to the table, and that's an alternate delivery model that's owned by the City of Edmonton, so that we can understand what other models are out there outside of what we already know and do every day. So that is something that we're really encouraging our councillors and our senior management from across the municipalities to come to in April so that they can ask the questions and just understand what alternatives there are when we're thinking about servicing and capacity and that investment that needs to be made on the ground. The next slide talks about investment readiness. So there's a lot of work that's happening under here, and this is very much focused on capacity building, making sure that our economic development officers on the ground, as well as the county and our partners and our businesses, have the resources and the tools that they need to do the work that they need to do. So community profile, I mentioned that was one of the very first things we did. We also work with the province, and we almost have a monthly subscription. We are probably one of the biggest users of Lightcast, but it is something that as municipalities we can sign up for a 30-day license once a month from the province. And that enables us to look at things like business counts and really kind of drill down into what is happening in the economy. We also spend a lot of time developing tools and templates for our municipalities. So the digital asset library, taking the photos and videos that we have and creating open access to our municipalities so that you can use that photo and video content. You don't need to go out and get your own. It is there. Everything is vetted that's available. So we know you've got full use for that. Our sector profiles, which was a couple slides ago, understanding those 3 core sectors. This year we'll move into understanding the emerging sectors. And then the industrial land tool, which was an internal resource, and that's how we identified those 59 to those 7 properties. So that is something that we're working on kind of behind closed doors. It is for staff only because there's a lot of information in there that just shouldn't be shared publicly, but we need to be able to have a toolkit to really share and understand what is real and what is not when it comes to on the ground. And sometimes our biggest barrier to being investment ready and having property available is the landowner themselves. If they are not a willing seller, it is not investment ready, period. There's just no question about that. So that is a filter that we need to be able to apply. And that's part of why things like AI just will never work for this. We're never going to get away from that human touch of economic development because we have to be able to vet the information that we're getting. And that information only comes when we have relationships with landowners and with businesses to be able to understand what's actually happening in the environment. The Spotlight platform, that was our biggest investment, and that is something that all of our municipalities shared with us. And it will give us information about demographic forecasts. So that is actually something we're going to be putting on the line probably in the next month so that you can look out based on the forecast of what we know for demographics over the next 20 years, every kind of 5 years, what do we anticipate will come if we do this work? And then it also enables us to understand spending habits across the region. So we can, for market analysis, for new business investment or analysis, to build those business cases, we can understand what are people in Grey County or in this municipality actually spending their money on. The next slide talks about business retention and expansion. Even though this is number 3 in most of our municipalities, and for everything that we do, this touches everything. We are always focused on the businesses that we have here today first. Before we talk about attraction, we have to focus on retention and expansion, because if we have unhappy businesses here, nobody else is coming to join us, because we're not the ones who are getting the call about what is it like to do business in Grey County. It's your business community who is getting that call. So it is absolutely key that we are spending time first and foremost on building pride in our community and making sure that we understand who is here, who they are, and build relationships with them. And that's where Jessica's role is so key. You need boots on the ground. That has always been our motto at Grey County for economic development. You have to have those feet on the ground to be able to understand what's happening in the business community. But at the county, that's not our role. We should not be in all of our communities on the ground. We should be developing these toolkits and these resources, understanding the data, which is why we need economic developers on the ground doing that work, so that you have good relationship building. And that's where things like business retention and expansion studies is like the perfect in to build this work and get your staff out on the ground to do that work. That is where it needs to start. Our Made in Grey program is also a huge piece of this. So it's about storytelling and understanding how do we communicate all of the amazing things happening here. And that's where the Gather campaign came from. So in 2019, we had developed the Gather campaign. We went to council and declared 2020 would be the year to gather, and it wasn't. So we put it on a shelf and we brought it out last year with the help of Roger Mooking, who came on as our very first culinary ambassador. And he is so skilled at storytelling and helping people tell the story of who they are, why they're here, why Grey County matters to them. And that's exactly what we hired him to do. So last night we had our screening at Grey Roots where we played all 9 videos back to back. And I can tell you my heart felt this big by the time all was said and done, because the passion that you hear from the business community that is here, you just can't recreate that and you cannot fake it. And he does such a good job drawing that out and being able to put those videos together. That is how we want to build local pride here. So again, the focus, when we think about attraction and retention, our first focus of the Gather campaign is the local community, because there's so much that our community does not know about ourselves. So that pride growth here is where we want to start. And then the next market is the GTA and looking at tourists, because we know that most of our residents start as tourists. So why not get them here to spend their money while they're here and fall in love, become residents one day when we're ready for them. We also host a lot of networking and education events like the job fair. We just had our job fair last month again. That remains kind of a 101 for economic development as well, making those connections between employers and the potential job market. And what we have seen is a real shift. And we knew this going into 2025, that the economy is very different. We're finding a better balance in the economy where it's not so much a job seeker market anymore. For a long time, it has been a job seeker market. So you saw a lot of high standards when it came to what people want, what they're willing to do and work for, and where they want to work, because there was just so few opportunities available. It's not like that anymore. It is definitely starting to balance out. And what we are seeing are a lot more highly skilled individuals who are exactly what our economy needs. So we are seeing a better match throughout the community. So that is important. As a department, we also hosted 4 sector summits to understand what was happening from the business community. We did 54 retention visits with our municipalities, attended 18 different regional events, and we sit on 13 regional committees. So again, it's being those eyes and ears out there, gathering the trends, understanding what's happening, and then working with our municipalities on the ground. The next page is about entrepreneurship and innovation, and this is all about building networks. Here is where the Business Enterprise Center fits. We took over the Business Enterprise Center in 2018 from the city of Owen Sound. It had always been an organization that anybody in the province can go to. Because it's provincially funded, you can't put barriers or borders around it. But because it was called City of Owen Sound, everyone thought that it was only for Owen Sound businesses. That's not the case. So that was part of the reason why we brought it to the county. What that organization really focuses on is business startup. So we are not in the business expansion scale up phase. This is for small businesses to be able to get the expertise and advice and mentorship and programming that they need. And you can see from the numbers that we host a lot and they're very well received right across the county. And then we also run Summer Company and Starter Company Plus for the province. And through Starter Company Plus, we saw a great ROI last year where it's $60,000 provincial grant funding, leveraged $222,000 invested from those private businesses in that startup phase. You can see all of the statistics from January 1st to December 31st for the Business Enterprise Center. So what this does is tell you that entrepreneurship is alive and well. The appetite for starting and expanding business is very much there. We're seeing a huge renewal of that pride and that intent again right now. So what we saw for the last little while, even though these numbers are still staggering, they're lower than what they had been in the past, but it was a very different demographic. It was a kind of newly retiree demographic that we have seen over the last year or so, because they were the ones who had the money and the ability to step away from full-time employment and try entrepreneurship. We're starting to see that flip where it is younger individuals who are coming in and looking at this as their career type. So, a lot of that we think has to do with Made in Grey, Made in Ontario, Made in Canada movement. So, you never waste a good crisis. There are awful things happening worldwide, but we have an opportunity here. And because we already have an entrepreneurial spirit, this is our chance to really hone that. And I did ask Courtney if she could tell me, in Meaford specifically, how many consultations came through for businesses, not just to attend programs, but who are actual one-on-one sit down, we want to do something businesses. And she had 11 from Meaford last year. 1 was exploring entrepreneurship, 9 were starting businesses, and 1 was an existing business. And 3 of those who were looking to start businesses, she knows, have turned into physical Main Street locations in Meaford. So it is a good news sign that things are happening and we are seeing that consistent commitment. The next page still falls under entrepreneurship and innovation, but we wanted to give Sydenham campus its own shout out because this really has been our department's and Grey County's largest investment in economic development and innovation for the region. In the last 3 years, we're now over 1,000 short-term rentals who have come in only for training, research, and meetings. We limit it to what they're allowed to come in to do. So we know that there has been a huge need in our communities. We hosted our grand opening in May of last year when we celebrated the opening of the Makerspace, which is the region's largest makerspace, 8,000 square feet and over 150 pieces of equipment in the Sydenham campus. And that was made possible by over $1 million in contribution from the federal government and $100,000 from the provincial government as well as private sector. So again, seeing all of these partners and organizations come together has really made a difference. And that is a role that the county can play in facilitating this type of development. We don't expect to see a Sydenham campus in every municipality. It doesn't make any sense. But to be able to have satellite locations where there's programming that comes from Sydenham elsewhere, whether we're coming to a library or we're coming to your municipality, to be able to host these types of things, or taking some of the makerspace equipment that we have that is mobile on purpose to bring them to you. That is something that we are certainly committed to doing. We also brought Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Center to Grey County. So that was a dream from 2017 to be able to get that organization here. That is the scale up service. So when we talked about the Business Enterprise Center being the startup services, the Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Center, that is Georgian College's Entrepreneurship Center, part of their research and innovation lab at Georgian College in Barrie, they now have their very first satellite campus in covering Grey and Bruce counties, and it's located in Sydenham campus. So that's where larger businesses who are looking to change markets, looking to do new exports, looking to do intellectual property or significant investments, it's the Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Center that they go to. And because it's Georgian College, all of the intellectual property stays with the business. The college does not take any of that. And that's what makes it so unique. And now we have access to that. So all of our municipalities have access to that. And the last piece about Sydenham campus that I definitely don't want to miss is part of that strategy from 2017, 2018, when we were developing that business case to say we really needed to make an investment here, was to make sure that Georgian College had the ability to grow. They were absolutely strapped at the seams. They could not offer any new programming. They could not accept any new students into new programs that we needed in our region. So that was part of the rationale for why Sydenham campus, because it is right beside it. It is 10 acres, 45,000 square feet. It has the ability to enable Georgian to grow. We took all of the research that we did and gave it to Georgian College as well for their applications. And I know I had talked to you in August last year about the apprenticeship program and the fact that we had gone from 100 to 600 at that time. Now we're over 700. And Dave just let me know now it's 750. So we're seeing it consistently grow. And all of those apprenticeship programs, the only way to do that is to be employed in the area, because you have to be employed to be an apprentice to be sent off into the coursework. So we know that we have 750 apprentices working locally taking these programs. So it's that strategic vision, long-term vision, and it took a long time to get here, but it's working and it's helping to offset some of those challenges that we used to have around employment. The other side of that is the nursing program. So we spent a lot of time helping to advocate for the nursing as well, knowing that locally we have an aging population, we have a lot of need for healthcare. So now at Georgian College, you can do PSW, RPN, your bridging program between RPN and RN, and a full RN program, all in Owen Sound. And those programs are full. We have the Learn to Stay grant that allows people to come out of the area, come here, and if they agree to stay here for 2 years after, their tuition and books are paid for. So all of these things, it was that long-term kind of visioning and planting those strategic seeds and then watching them grow and nurturing them along the way. And that's what economic development really is. So these wins that I'm talking to you about today from last year were planted in 2018. So it takes a long time in economic development. I think that's part of our biggest challenge, is that by the time we're seeing results, so many people around our tables have changed. And it's really inspiring to know that we can do these pieces of work all the way through. But it's frustrating to know how long it takes to see the results and be able to actually demonstrate that what we thought then is actually what we did need. So, I always like to say that really good strategy will stand the test of time, and it's how we operate it and how we operationalize that gets us where we need to go. But really good results coming out of Sydenham campus. And the next page does talk about Henry Bernick and the Grey Bruce makers in particular. So you can read more about that. And then our local immigration partnership, which is a partnership with Bruce County. It's actually ending with us in the next 2 weeks. March 31st is when our funding ends, and we are in transition phase, hoping that everything goes well and it will transition to Bruce. So we'll stay partnered, and you shouldn't see much of a difference, but there will be a little bit of a gap in service, just given the negotiation timelines. The next page talks about destination development, and I will stop here. I won't go into all of the Grey Roots goodness that we could spend a whole other hour on. But destination development, this is the last pillar in economic development and tourism component, and this is really about building place. So when we think about economic development and all the work that we do, we're thinking of the whole of life. So yes, it is having the right job for people, but it's also making sure that when they leave their work, they have the restaurants and the shops and the social experiences and the community that they want to go to and they feel like they belong in. Having all of those pieces together. That's what makes that lived experience. And that is what economic development is looking at. So we touch every department everywhere. But that's what makes our job so interesting and keeps us on our toes, that's for sure. Speaking about our role previously, there's been a lot of conversation, and especially through the pandemic, this is where this outdoor management group came from. Again, understanding what is our role. We saw such capacity because we are the largest tourism marketing organization in the region. Huge drive of tourists coming to the area, but our natural assets couldn't handle it. We didn't have the ability to hold that capacity, and that's where we're running into challenges and conflict between visitors and residents. And that's not something we want. We want good experiences, positive experiences. But we also realized, how do we do anything outside of develop protocols and facilitate conversations between all of the organizations, because there is not one landowner that owns everything. It is so convoluted, and it is really, really difficult to say, as the county, we're going to tell you, you need to do this, when we don't own the land and we actually have no ability to enforce that. So again, it was understanding what is our role, and that was about facilitating, looking at policies, looking at how we market, where we market, and really shifting our focus to destination protocol and then destination marketing. And we have the ability to have that louder voice when it comes to regional marketing. So for a long time, we spent the time talking internally within Gray because we didn't want to attract any more visitors because we were not ready. But now we have the ability, because we're understanding all of the assets around the county, and because we're doing things like the Gather campaign, to say, you don't just come to this location. We have all of these pockets and all of these things happening around the county. Now we can go out as a broader regional marketing voice and focus on external communications. So that's where you see the updates to our brochures, a brand new community trails guide to talk about what you are doing in your municipalities and bring people downtown so that they will spend their money in our communities and not just come and go with a bagged lunch that they brought from home. We want them to spend their money here. So that's an area that we can play, and we're using the Gather campaign to really pick up on that as we go forward. So I will end there. That was a ton of information, probably more than you wanted. But the whole back of the book and all the rest of the attachment that I provided for you talks about Grey Roots Museum and Archives, which is the other half of our department. And they really are doing amazing things there, and looking forward to turning that into a formal tourism information hub for the region, and all of the good work that can come through partnerships there to tell a more inclusive story about who we are. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Savannah. It's always inspiring to attend your events and hear from you and your group, because it always is topical and relevant. I'm going to turn it over, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions. The only thing I'm going to just say as a little preface is that, yeah, Meaford, personal opinion, and a couple of mayor, deputy mayor here, they can say what they would as well. But what Meaford, I think, has always kind of been a step behind in economic development for a lot of years, and it's really encouraging. I think now we're starting to put foundational pieces in place that hopefully we can work more in concert with Grey County to kind of take steps forward. To that end as well, this particular advisory committee, I think, is very, very aggressive and optimistic about that future. And recently, we've actually, there have been recommendations from this group to council about doing a vision planning. The BRNE study and our ECDEV strat plan is actually due now. So those are all three recommendations that have been put forth to council and have been accepted by council. And we just needed the tools in place. And now we're just starting to get that foundation. We're just getting our new CAO on April 9th. So we're hoping now this is a new beginning for us to be able to move forward in tandem with the county, so that we can, work together to kind of use those blocks to really grow. So thank you, because I think that for some of the members of this table who were on past ECDEVs, maybe weren't aware of some of the relationship between county and municipality. And I think it was really important to hear that. So just to know what kind of resources are available for us. So with that, I'll turn it over to members to ask questions of Savannah. You can't tell me there's no questions. Oh, yeah.
It was a great presentation. Thank you. It's nice to read ahead of time. From your experience and knowing that Meaford's at the ground floor of doing economic development, and being continual optimists, we're hoping this next start will move us forward. And I think, as our chairman has said, there are some pieces hopefully in place. How important is it to get for us to tackle that, our community vision and our community goals? Is that something that can be done 2 years from now, a year from now? Should we be planning on doing that at the beginning? And then other types of elements that you've talked about, like this, well, I guess I have several questions, so maybe I better just start with one and then go. I've got a whole bunch, and I'm sure the rest of my colleagues here have some as well, so I don't think we're short of questions.
Sounds good. And your mics all stay on at the same time, right? They're not like the county ones that are one at a time. Okay, okay, perfect. Excellent question. And I really loved your comments about, what this committee is already recommending. And when you look at economic development, you can't do economic development if you don't have a vision. That has to be the absolute first thing you think about. That vision needs to be as much of a roadmap in terms of what you're comfortable with as a community. So you need to know what type of business you want here, what type of investment you want, what don't you want here? And you need to find consensus around what that is, because we can't go out then with that broader voice to go attract business here or help business grow if you don't know who you're comfortable with. That was one of the things actually that, Invest Ontario really reinforced for us during that session, that you need to be very clear about what you are willing to accept in your community. And you cannot waver from that once you've put it out there. Because if we bring somebody who we have lured and we've done all of this work and time investment to get them here, and then you decide, actually, I don't want that type of business here, that is the last message you want to send out there. That will hurt your reputation forever. And then the second side of it is making sure that you've got the resources to actually do the work when they come, because most of the investment, when we talk to them, now it's different with current business who's looking to expand and grow. They have longer timelines typically because they're thinking about it, they're already here. But a lot of the time when business wants to come here, we're given 24 to 48 hours to have responses back to them. So if we don't have all of that at our fingertips, it is really difficult. And to be able to spend the time to say, do you want this? Do you not? It cannot be done in 48 hours because you can't have the conversations you need. Council can't make the decisions they need in that timeline. So you have to do that work first. So vision is absolutely key. And then just going back to what Rob had mentioned about, the BRNE and the active strategy, you need to do it in that order. So you need the vision first, then you need to do the BRNE, and then you need to do the strategy, because until you have talked to your business community to understand what's working, what's not, it's really hard to develop a strategy when you just don't know. So the BRNE is the next step that needs to be done. And it really is an internal staff role. It should always be done by staff. You don't want to bring in an external consultant to do that work, because that's your opportunity to build relationships, to get those boots on the ground so that you can go into the community and understand who's there, put a face to the name, and build those relationships. Once you have that information, that's when you would bring in a third party, or you go for external funding to be able to then action what your business community told you. So those are some of the items that I would do in that order. And then you have all of that to go into your strategy when you're ready.
Just following up in terms of the business retention and expansion work. From your experience, is it, like we obviously have not done one in a long time. And is it to our advantage as a community doing one now to use some external support to assist, staff doing it for the first time?
I would say no. You want to do it as staff internally. So the external support that you would lean on is OMAF, not OMAFRA, OMAF. now, or depending on which one, the rural advisory group, they have templates. It's part of downtown revitalization. They've got templates for that. They've got templates for BRNEs that have all of the questions there. And then you can fine tune them to your community so that you're getting the answers that you want. That's where I would lean on externally. Go to the resources that exist already in the province so that you can use their templates and their tools to do that work, but then have staff actually be the ones doing the interviews with your business community. Because that way, you know, that information is going to be retained and you've taken that first step of building relationships.
Great.
Thank you very much, Savannah, for your presentation. I want to key in, I guess the vision is paramount and it's the first step. So the communities of the 9 municipalities that have done, they all haven't done BRNEs, I would assume.
No.
But the ones that have, did they have that vision first? And was that communicated to the businesses in advance of, embarking on the BRNE?
That's a great question. I think that it's hit and miss across our municipalities. So for the most part, our municipalities, through their corporate strategic plans, have set out a vision that says this is who we are and who we want to be. They haven't all necessarily fine-tuned it to what do they want in terms of economic development? What type of business community do we want to build? What type of future and investment and legacy wealth creating projects do we want to see in our communities? Not everybody has done that. So that's part of why, we're trying to have this build Team Gray, build this regional understanding so that everyone knows where they fit. And part of my project for this year is developing MOUs with each of our municipalities. And that really is trying to find a path forward and a commitment to what are the things that we are going to agree on in terms of the language that we speak and the actions that we take as a region, but then what are the roles and responsibilities for the municipality and the county? So one of those items that I think is going to pop up on a lot of municipalities for the municipal role is identifying what that economic development vision is, because it's going to take time and it will change over time too, as your communities change and as you grow, or you stay the same. Your vision of what you want will change. So being open and adaptable to that, I think, is important too, because the economy changes like that and we watch it all the time.
Sure. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Shirley.
Michael, go ahead.
Sure. So thanks for that. That was great. I think you mentioned the demographic problem last
I
time.
did.
It is, I think, probably the biggest single thing staring right at us. And I suspect that Meaford is a little worse off than Grey County. I mean, just my little AI feature on my phone says that Meaford has a median age of about 55, which would be about 15 years older than the median age in the rest of the province, right?
Mhm.
And that is a huge thing because it's hard to move quickly, except for one way. And that's I offer this neutrally, but it's because it can be controversial, but being welcoming to an immigration community speeds that up dramatically. Your comments, I don't want to be provocative here at all, but your comments about wanting to make sure we have the right kind of businesses come means we have to understand what the nature of the community is going to be too. I'd be very supportive of being open to welcoming to new Canadians in the world that we live in particular. The other way to do it, of course, is with doing things for young families. But the birth rate is actually pretty slow. Like you get young families and people get born and then, you manage to work your way against this. But a 15-year deficit compared to the rest of the province is a real challenge. So I would have said that one of the biggest things that this community could do is be very, very clear in ensuring that it addresses its demographic problem, because those numbers are really going to hit us very quickly. And they're easy. The easy thing about this one is it, because you want to know how many 40-year-olds there are going to be in 10 years. Just count the 30-year-olds today, right? Like, so this is actually pretty hard science.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate that comment, because you would be surprised how often we hear, where'd the people go? Where'd the workforce go? We don't know where they are. well, they're in this age bracket now. That's exactly where they went. They haven't left. They just are no longer in the workforce. And it is pure science, but I think we get lost in it because it is so simple that we discount it. So we don't want to discount it anymore, which is why it is front and center in this annual report. It is front and center in all of the work that we're doing. And that's why for the foundational year, we spent so much time understanding the demographics. And you're very right in terms of immigration and being welcoming communities. When we looked at this, and I can share a link actually with Jessica to send to this group if you'd like, and it is the presentation that we talked about in terms of demographics when we were at the forum in the fall. And we looked at what's happening in Ontario, what's happening in Gray, what's happening in Bruce, what's happening in Simcoe. Ontario looks like this, exactly like it should, because immigration worked. We have that almost perfect influx of youth who are taking over the boomer demographic. In Simcoe, it looks exactly the same because they have Barrie, they have access, 401, they've got the GO, all of those things. It makes sense that they have that. But Bruce is also starting to get that hourglass back, which has a lot to do with Bruce Power and the fact that they are actively recruiting in young families and a lot of international workers who are coming into the area. So around us, it's happening. And it's happening to us in a little way, but not in a big enough way. So you're absolutely right. We need to be focused on that. And the one nice thing about Meaford is that you've had so much experience with international workers coming in and out because of the apples and because of tourism in this area. So you are a welcoming community, and being able to shout that from the rooftops is something that you want to keep doing. So that you don't lose sight of that. We have a lot of work to do in rural Ontario around this, but I can tell you 5 years ago when we started the local immigration partnership to where we are today, we've seen vast change in terms of openness and understanding that we are all people and we are all neighbors and we need to have each other's backs, no matter what. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. This is what we need to do. So we are seeing that, and you're absolutely right.
The interesting thing about it is it's the one place in which you can layer your other requirements.
Mm.
You know, kind of education, kind of skills, kind of investment capacity of the newcomer. All of these kinds of things can be built into this, and it's the only thing that's fast.
Yes.
Thank you. Ron, do you have?
Thank you very much for your presentation, Savannah. One of the initiatives of our committee and which considers is the BR&E study. And you had mentioned about how we could proceed with that. I was wondering how much support or what resources we may get from the county going forward with that study.
I would say you don't need a lot of resources from the county to do it because all it takes is Jessica's time. That's it. You've got the questions available from the province. You've got the training available from the province. And if you work it into her work plan, it can literally cost you nothing outside of staff time to do a BR&E. After the BR&E is done, that's where I could see potential, partnerships with the county when you identify, these are the areas that we need. So if they're within our wheelhouse of our role of what we can do, then it makes sense to have partnership opportunities or marketing opportunities or whatever it happens to be that comes out of that. But don't get scared off by a BR&E. Like I did it when I was in Hanover. I did 2 of them. One, I was a summer student and I did the BR&E, but I was already working part-time in the municipality in recreation. So I was a part of the community at that time, and knew that I wanted to be there long-term. So I did one as a summer student. I did one as a full-time staff, and all it was 6 months in my work plan to pound pavement and go and talk. And at that time, they would take up to 2 hours per interview. It was 75 pages, double-sided of questions. No business wants to do that anymore. So the province has done a really good job of narrowing that kind of scope down, and they have one for every single sector. So there are common questions that apply to everybody, and then you can go by individual sector, and then you can add your own Meaford questions onto it as well. And they will provide all of that, and there's no cost. So
A follow-up to that, have you been involved with any BR&Es that have partnered with the Chamber of Commerce in order to implement them or be a collaborative partner?
yes, I did that in Hanover. When I was there, I believe that's also what's happening in Southgate as part of their BRNE. When you're looking to implement and you have your list of recommendations, it doesn't make any sense to duplicate or, recreate a resource. So where it works to fit with the chamber, whether it's through marketing or through networking, if that's one of the things that comes out of your BRNE, that's an obvious spot to go.
Another follow-up, if I may.
Sure.
With respect of the resource that we have in place right now, what additional resources or budgetary requirements would we have in addition to the wage and benefit component?
For the BRNE,
Yes.
to do the study, nothing. No, nothing.
Shirley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with your indulgence, I have 3 questions for Savannah. But Savannah, yes, thank you so much for being here. And I think you can all see why we admire Savannah so much at Great County. She's so inspiring and motivating every time she comes up to speak. Everybody's just, our ears perk right up. So we really appreciate you, Savannah. My first question, everybody's excited about the potential of doing a BRNE. So hopefully we get the funding and we're off and running with that. Over the past few years, we've also talked about a business gap analysis. So should we do the BRNE? Is it your recommendation that we should still do a business gap, or would that not be necessary? That information would all kind of roll into a BRNE?
Do them both.
Do
They are
them both.
2 very different templates, 2 very different practices. The BRNE is all about the response to the question, where the business mix analysis is a color-coded diagram in terms of what business do you have downtown. And you focus it specifically on downtown. So I would get both resources. They're both the same ministry. So Crystal Ellis, I know that Jessica's already been connected with her. She is your resource. That was a role that the county played for a little while when we lost all of our provincial regional advisors, but they're back. And Crystal is our regional advisor for the area. She used to work for Wellington County, so she has experience actually working in economic development, which is hugely valuable. And she is exactly who you need, but she will be able to provide you both of those templates, because there's no reason why you can't do them both at exactly the same time. And the business mix analysis, if you're doing the BRNE beside it, then it becomes that color coding exercise compared to something broader where you would almost do a mini BRNE to do that work. So if you combine those efforts, then you're going to be much further ahead.
That sounds good. And a business mix analysis then could also be managed by our current staff, by Jessica. So there's your work plan for the next year. Indeed. My next question, Savannah. Everybody's aware that TC Energy has received funding from the province and they're going to be going forward with their impact assessment phase. So I'm curious to know kind of where that fits into the overarching strategy. Or does each component of that just kind of roll in with the other aspects of the strategy as it exists? Or does that require any kind of a separate allocation of work plan to follow that project, considering the immense size of it?
Yeah, that is a good question. And I think, when we think about what is our role in that work, it's being ready for when the investment is going to come here. So you need to understand, in Meaford, because I really do think that this should be ground zero. This is where the work should be happening before it has to look to the rest of the community. What land do you have available to be able to build new on? Chances are very good during the construction phase, because that's when the biggest employment potential will happen. Where are the industrial parks that those contractors can come in and set up shop? So when they go, you have an industrial park. Where is the housing going to be able to go so that they can come and use it and it's built for that use? But when they go, you have that housing available in your municipality. Those are the types of things that I would spend, time and resource, staff time on understanding and then getting ready for that. And we know how long it takes to bring land online, but that's part of the work that we're doing. And that is where I do see a partnership between Meaford and Gray, because we're trying to do this investment ready work. And right now in 2025, so I know we didn't talk about it based on the annual report, but where we're going now is identifying and doing the due diligence that it will take to go from a site that could be investment ready to a site that is investment ready. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to say, you need to service this tomorrow, because we know that's not a realistic thing. But for each property that we can identify, what needs to be done. So what studies need to be done? Is there servicing capacity? What is it going to take to service it? Per foot of pipe, what is it going to cost? Give us, the best estimate of what it will take to make an investment ready so we can de-risk it for that potential investor. And that is work that we're doing right now. But again, we need that on the ground connection to understand, where does Meaford want to go in terms of industrial land, in terms of housing development, any of those pieces of that investment ready. That comes back to your vision, and then that on the ground resource to know who and what and where, so that then they can feed it into what we're doing at the county to really actually kind of develop that tear sheet of, this property needs this is where it is today, this is what it'll take to get it where we need it tomorrow. So that is a whole separate set of resources.
And I appreciate that, Savannah. And for us, it really revolves around the wastewater treatment plant and how quickly we can get that
Yeah.
project underway. So yeah, look forward to continued collaborations with you and the county on all of those pieces you just mentioned. And if I may, Mr. Chair, one last question. We didn't talk about it today, Savannah, but I think buried somewhere in your strategy is a little paragraph on doctor recruitment. So I'm just wondering, does anybody in your department have any time to kind of look at that, or what is happening at the county level in terms of support for doctor recruitment for our member municipalities?
That was a great question. So through you, Mr. Chair, that comment you found in the Made in Gray portion and the toolkit portion for digital assets and resources. So we as Gray are not doing doctor recruitment ourselves. What we can do is provide you with really good imagery, really good video clips to help tell that story and build that community pride of who you are. Knowing again that most people, when they're looking to come to an area, it's for the job, which you have a job for a doctor. There's just no question about that. But what is the life going to be like when they get here? So having the community profile and that understanding of, these are their schools, these are the type of houses that we have available, these are the service clubs in the community, these are the volunteer opportunities, these are the recreational amenities that we have, these are the sports camps and clubs and things that your kids can be part of, and then putting that together to tell the story. So we can provide the visuals for you to be able to do that, and then that broader regional component, because again, you want to talk about Meaford specifically, but then you want to talk about the region, because we know that nobody comes and just stays put within the boundary of one community. So that's the other side that we can provide to be able to talk about, this is what's happening in Blue Mountain, this is what's happening in Owen Sound, this is what's happening in Hanover. As a region, this is what it looks like. These are the opportunities we have available. So that's the type of work around doctor recruitment that we can provide.
And that will be incredibly helpful. So no, we appreciate that community profile, and I know we can structure those for the attraction of businesses or immigrants or, whatever we find in the vision that we need, we can structure a profile to be appropriate for that particular area. So some more work to do. Thank you, Savannah, so much.
Michael.
I hope this is a short answer, but it's a pretty short question. I think I noticed that we have about 2 billion in exports. 1.8 of that, I think I have to go back to remember, but 1.8 of that was manufacturing. This is sort of the bad news question, but how much of that is vulnerable to tariffs?
That's a great question. So through you, Mr. Chair, the conversations that we've had so far with our business community, and they haven't been immense conversations, because now is still not the time. Business does not want to talk to us. They are busy trying to figure out what is happening, focusing on this constantly changing environment. So the uncertainty is massive. But what we do know is that most of our businesses here in Grey County are well diversified. So they are either exporting around the world or more in Canada than they are to the United States. So there will be some impact. Absolutely, there's going to be impact, but it won't be as great here as what it is in Southern Ontario, where it's very much focused on border exchanges. We do anticipate that we're going to see a growth in tourism, because we're already hearing about it. We were just at 2 trade shows in the GTA, and that I got a report back. It took 9 minutes for the first conversation to be had about Americans who are visiting saying, everybody's coming to Canada now. Like, this is where we're going. And Canadians saying, we're traveling in Canada. This is where we want to do our traveling. So this is a real opportunity for us to be able to grow that spending here. And just on the diversity piece of our business community, because we are made up of 13,000 businesses and the majority of them are small businesses, we're very nimble, we're quick to move, and we aren't all of our eggs in one basket. So the impact that we'll have here, there will be some. What it is, we still have no idea, but it won't be as great as other locations.
It's really interesting you say that, because coming here today, I heard a news report, literally probably heard it just said that they did a large study of businesses in Ontario, and they said that most businesses would be able to withstand a year impact of tariffs before they would really. So you would hope that something kind of happens before then between the countries that kind of figures what the heck's going on with this, because yeah, it's so volatile right now. It's crazy. Evelyn.
I'd like to follow up with your discussion around physician recruitment. Just like the issue of attracting businesses to our community, we need to understand what the strengths and weaknesses are within our community. I think that same issue exists with our physicians. And I'm just wondering, as part of our business retention and expansion, that we also assess what things could be done differently with our physicians in our community that would support them in, getting colleagues to come, because I have a feeling there is a lot to be heard about that in our community. That leads more to my question to you, Savannah, is, do you have any examples of good business support models that other communities have developed now that we have a resource to kind of build that business support? Are there some good examples on how it's implemented? Because just having a person doesn't necessarily mean that happens. Are there best practices? Are there models that we could learn from?
That's a great question. I do think that we've got great models right across the county and in other jurisdictions too. And it really does boil down to having the physical person who is out in the community, engaged in the community, keeping track of what you're hearing in the community, and then doing either programs or initiatives or gathering information and getting it back. It's that feedback loop. That's the part that I think is a best practice, because we can be really good at bringing all the information in. We do what we think needs to be done. We've got everything at our fingertips, but then nobody knows about it, which is part of why we are now doing an annual report, because I can't tell you how many times we've been asked, we know you do great things in economic development, but what do you do? Because we're really good at getting behind the scenes, getting the work done, putting our heads down, but then we don't talk about it or communicate it or market it. So all of the best practice that I have seen in different municipalities is getting it back out, listening, figuring out what is the thing that I can do about this, and then communicating it back and having that constant feedback loop. So you can't just go to the business community once and disappear. Like, you have to be there constantly. And then working with groups like yours, committees like yours, other partners, so that you're all talking the same language. One of the really cool examples that I'll steal from Hanover again, only because I spent so much time there. So, it's fresh in my mind, but there was a formalized partnership between the municipality, the downtown improvement area, and the Chamber of Commerce. And they did their community marketing together. They did their community activations and their events and all of those things together. So that way it wasn't just, well, Jessica's going to do it all for you, because she's one person and she's going to have a lengthy work plan. I mean, based on what we talked about today, she's set for the year. So having all of the other players involved to be able to roll up their sleeves, come together and build that pride within your community and do some of the things that need to be done. I really do think that that is a great idea. And we've seen that in places like Owen Sound. We're seeing that in Southgate. The Chambers of Commerce in our 5 municipalities for Grey Highlands, Chatsworth, West Grey, Southgate, and I can't think of the other one. Anyways, 5 of them came together and now they are the South Grey Chamber of Commerce and they're doing things together, and it's municipalities and chambers who are working really, really closely to do that work, having mayor's breakfasts and having economic development mixers and things like that, just to bring people together. So again, you're out, you're in, you're out. It's this constant back and forth cycle. Those, I think, are what work well.
So so one of the things maybe that we need to be looking at is how do we market, our capacity as a municipality to address business retention and expansion? What would be the roles? Because I don't think most people know that you're here. And I don't think anybody would know, is it appropriate, is it not appropriate to contact our resource? And I think we need to, as a municipality, figure out, what is the role, responsibility, very clear, and what would be the primary supports that you could or could not provide. I think would be a good starting point, and then so that you've got something to go to the groups with, because I think it's not helpful just to say, well, what can I do? I think there needs to be a realistic assessment of what one individual can do to support, and act as a conduit or for other municipal contacts and whatever. But realistically, we need to manage expectations.
Yes.
So that when somebody asks for help, that person can really say, well, I can help here, but I can't help here, but maybe this is who you can reach out to. I just think a lot of people, especially when you say you're on the Economic Development Committee or growing or growth, whatever. Anyway, people tell you their stories. So I've had lots of stories provided to me. But I think their biggest concern is, what can they really do? And is there really going to be any difference? So I think your point of not only do we ask questions, but we need to provide feedback and follow up and actually deliver on what we are saying we can deliver on. Not that you can answer every question, but I think there's some work to be done for us to package that and put that together. And so I see that as a critical point, because otherwise I think it's very hard to start in that role.
You're absolutely right. And the one thing with economic development is that I'm going to wear this hat and I'm going to wear this hat and I'm going to wear this hat. And a lot of times in the municipality too, if people don't know, where should this project go? Economic development. And it becomes this big, unachievable thing. So but that goes back to your vision, right? What is it that you want? Where are you going? And then prioritize. So you may have a list this big. And when we look at our master plan, it is this big. But we're saying in year 1, we're only looking here. In year 2, we're going to maintain, and then we're only going to look here. So we're being very, purposeful about what we say we're going to take on and set expectations. And the other side of it is being able to have, connections between the municipal departments and have, Jessica kind of in the middle of all of that, so that she knows if she gets a question about water or wastewater or roads or a pothole here or, snow clearing over here, that's not her role to answer it. It's her role to say, let me hand off to the actual person instead of just call the municipality. It's call this person. So making that connection so people don't spend time or feel lost trying to find out, where do I go? Who do I talk to? Economic development really is everybody's role, but the economic development officer gets to be that hub and spoke of where do things go.
So, Mr. Chair, I was just wondering if, it, who is, should it be the committee, should it be the staff person and the new CAO? But to me, it seems that it's important that this new role be clearly identified, what the key priority and project should be for the next 6 months, year, whatever, and that council adopt and approve that, because if we don't all agree, then, I'm sitting here, to me, if as a council member saying, well, I think this person should be doing this, because as you said, it's such a huge area, and when we start into it, everybody's gonna have all these wonderful expectations, which are great, but on the other hand, if we can't deliver, then we just keep showing how it's not getting done. So I was just wondering, how will that go forward, and what would be some ideas on how to bring that forward so that there is agreement with council that this is how this resource will be utilized primarily, so that there is an understanding, I guess, by all parties involved.
Sure. So we did, just before the meeting, we were just talking, and it's ironic because we're talking about the Meaford Chamber of Commerce potentially being an asset. And what the real irony here is, like, literally, we're at the ground level of almost all of it. MCOC is kind of rebuilding right now. They've just made a presentation to council about kind of their grand plan moving forward, and we're very supportive and optimistic that they're gonna be able to be a real ally. We're just building, with 2 people that we're just putting in place right now from the next dev perspective. So they are literally learning on the fly. We've got a new CAO starting April 9th. So we're an egg, which is about to hatch, and we're about to move forward. And what that's going to look, what kind of bird that's going to be, I don't know yet, but that's what's going to develop. Having said that, so it made me think when you were saying that, to your point, until we get the CAO in place, yes, council has to, and I think what this group is already doing is making recommendations to council, which is absolutely a priority to try and develop what council strategy can be. I'm gonna ask a question here that you're not gonna be able to answer again, but that's what we're good at. In terms of a time frame of this, so this is a big, really kind of huge endeavor to try to tackle. So realistically, knowing the ground level we're at, what time frame is realistic? Knowing that in 2026 it's an election, and the people that are around the horseshoe right now may not even be there. And again, you have potential strategic priorities changing or different takes on economic development. Again, we're right now trying to build in year 3, going into year 4, a strategy to go, yeah, let's go. This should have happened in year 1. Great. Realistically, from your experience, to try and do the vision planning and the BRE and the ECDEV strat plan and everything, how many years are we talking to kind of even realistically accomplish this?
Oh, you asked the tough questions. For a BRE, 6 months. That's all you need. If
Okay.
you clear everything else off and you just pound pavement for 6 months, you can have that done. So before the end of this year, you can have yourself a BRE. The vision component is going to take longer, but you need to be having those conversations now. So I know you have been having those conversations, but you need to be really, really serious about having that. That you need your CAO in place to be able to really kind of hone in on where that's going, because that is your connection back to Jessica and staff, to understand where it is that you want to go. Do you have to formalize to say, this is it, we wrote it down, this is our vision of where we're going to go, to be able to do the BRE and the active strategy? No, but you have to have a good idea of where you want to go and consensus among yourselves of where you want to go, but you don't have to formalize it. You just have to be in agreement of where you want to be. So that, I would say, by the end of this year, you could probably have that consensus as well of where you want to go. And then for the active strategy, if you have all of that other information in place, you can have a strategy done in 3 to 6 months. So a year and a half from now, you should be able to have all of those pieces in place. To see implementation of all of this work and things starting to change, 3 to 5 years. That's what you need to give yourself. Give yourself a realistic time frame. And that's why most strategic plans are 5 years worth of action plans, but you're going to have little wins along the way. Do an annual report at the end of the year to say, these are the things we did. So people can see they may have not been grandiose, but we did things. We got stuff done. We're achieving the results that we want to do. And this is setting us up for where we want to go. And just be really, confident and clear about, I need to keep communicating these pieces as I go. And then that gives you the time to plant those seeds and do that longer term work that will take 3 to 5 years to see.
Go.
So my question's more for the committee. It's great to hear the validation that we do have the capacity to do this ourselves. But I do know that when we started talking about the vision, we were getting quite a bit of pushback about capacity and the ability to deliver on that. And so I'm wondering what the role is in this committee to ensure that that direction makes it to the staff level. And I don't know where those intersect points lie or what that process looks like for feedback to go from this committee to wherever it needs to go to make that happen, because it is a very different direction than what we've been hearing before. There was a lot of barriers being raised about the ability to deliver this in-house and capacity of staff and things like that. So how do we provide that input that is where we prioritize and feel that that needs to take place?
I would dare say, and I hope we have 3 members of council sitting in the room, that that's going to be incumbent upon us. So it's incumbent upon this group to make the recommendations, and I already applaud that this group has done that, because again, we were on an ECDEV scenario 3-4 years ago. We're trying to make recommendations to staff, and they really did not get past staff point to even council. We're now at the point where I'm hoping that this body is being heard at council level, and it still needs to be constantly stressed. So it's going to be my job to be reporting to council to stress the importance of the desire to do that. And this is a public advisory committee. We need to hear the public's opinion. The public is saying this is a priority. That needs to happen on the backs of working with the county and the county's recommendations that this needs to happen. So it's incumbent upon us as council members to champion that and make sure it happens at that level. So we can really, at this body, do nothing more than the recommendation, but we need to carry that through. Sure.
And just to add to that, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think it's really going to be incumbent upon our new CAO and the one-on-one conversations that we have with that individual in the early stages of their employment here, so that we can stress the desire and the need to undertake such an exercise. So I think hopefully we can have some influence in that regard.
Sue, are we here till 3:30 or 4? Thank goodness. 4
Sorry.
tomorrow? Because I don't want to, like, I mean, we do have other things, and I'm not saying they're less important, but when we have you here as a resource that I think is really valuable, I want to make sure that we do have the opportunity to take advantage of that. So I want to make sure we're not taking too much of your time as well, Savannah.
No, you are good. I have to
Okay.
be at Owen Sound Council for 5:30, but until then, I'm yours.
Okay, so in that case, I'm still going to throw it back to if there's any more questions from around the horseshoe. Ron.
Yes, I was very interested in your comment regarding tourism, 1.19 billion and 837,000 jobs. So looking at that, we all have been noted that Canadians want to vacation at home this current year. Are we positioned to take advantage of that additional resource that may be available with respect to the people that are traveling at home in our promotion of tourism events?
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, we have, I think, the commitment from our businesses. They see the opportunity, they're working on it. We've got TIO and TIAC, which are the provincial and the federal industry associations. They are all over this as well, providing as much, recommendation and support as we can to the business community. And then we as Grey County are out there marketing our Gather campaign and marketing that this is a region that you can come to, but not just in one little pocket. We're trying to showcase the whole region so that we don't hit those capacity issues.
Shirley.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I know you've mentioned it a few times now, Santa, the Gather campaign really is incredible. It's just absolutely amazing. So could you share with the group where they should go to look at those videos?
Oh, absolutely. Visit gray.ca/gather. You can get there, or you can go gatheringgray.ca. Either one goes to the same spot. There are 9 videos that we've produced so far. We are getting ready again next month and then again in September to shoot the next set of videos. So this is something that we want to do year over year, and we are budgeting accordingly for it. So the Gather campaign ideally will be decades long.
Read first, please.
Thank you. I want to come back to investment readiness for a moment because I know in my past experience, from the time an investment decision's made to the time that they can cut the ribbon, has to be quite short. And in order to be investment ready, there's a lot involved. Can you tell us who within the county is kind of leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else? And what are they doing that's a little bit different? And also I see that there's a forum coming up in April. I think you mentioned it. Who's going to be at that and what are kind of the next steps there?
Excellent question. So through you, Mr. Chair, when you look at our investment ready numbers in terms of 7 properties across the county, nobody is leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else. We are all in a state of needing to do a lot of work. Who was ahead of the curve was Southgate. So Southgate set a vision at least 15 years ago that said their industrial park is going to be an eco park, and they are only going to bring investment in that is environmentally sustainable. And that's it. They put a massive billboard up on Highway 10 and they marketed that, and now it's full. And they have phase 2 and phase 3 coming, and phase 2 is full and phase 3 is almost full. So they have done excellent work in doing that, but it's because they had a vision that said, this is what we're doing, and they did not stray from it. So there were lots of inquiries that would come through to say, we want to do this. And they would say, nope, not a fit. They were very clear about wanting to be committed to that. But they are now in a place too where they don't have any more land because they've done such a good job of selling what they needed to sell that they just don't have the space available. But they also geographically are 45 minutes to the GTA. They've got an excellent location and they had a ton of land to be able to do that. So they brought the land on, they had the vision, and then they sold it. Where we are today is working with all of our municipalities right across the board, trying to understand where these lands are. So we're spending a lot of time, Steve Furness in our office, he is the lead on investment readiness. He has been doing this for 30 years and he knows inside and out. And we work very closely with Luigi Presta, who is from Think Compass. That is our external consultant and he is very well connected to industry. And part of why that relationship works so well is because he is constantly understanding where people are going, where the potential is and what investors need so that we can use that to be ready. But we have been working on investment readiness since 2016 when Made in Gray original economic development strategy came out. And then through the pandemic, almost all of our land and buildings were sold, built, and now we're starting again. So it's trying to keep that, that long-term vision of where we're going. But right now, it's a level playing field for everybody.
So to that end, Evelyn, just before I go to you, so Deputy Mayor brought up TCE as being, something that's looming and want to take advantage of. We know Bruce Power is also doing an expansion. Where does that fall into that same time frame? I mean, again, it's going to be 9 municipalities all going, look at me for their work as well. How kind of close is that to fruition, and how quickly do we need to be able to position ourselves to be able to put ourselves in front of that environment?
It is a long timeline for the Bruce Seat project. So they are in impact assessment work. That work can take upwards of 3 years to get through there. And then all of the kind of pre-study and pre-work that would need to be done, we're talking probably 7 years-ish before there's a shovel in the ground. If Bruce C gets all of the permissions to be able to go forward and they get the support. So I think both are a very, very similar timeline. But the work on where is the land going to be and how are we going to get it ready needs to have started 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So you need to start now, being able to identify that. And that's why, as the county right now, we are doing that work. But that's because we had the leadership forum last fall where we're saying we need to do this work. So your comment about having 9 municipalities talk about we're the best, we would prefer no municipalities talk. Come through the county so that we can talk as Grey County. This is what we have right across the county. This is what the region can provide. This is what the workforce looks like. This is what the communities look like. So that way, it's the counties that are talking to Bruce Power and to suppliers. And that's how we structured ourselves in 2016 when we were working on that first wave for the major component replacement. It is called the Clean Energy Frontier, and Bruce Grey and Huron counties came together with Bruce Power, and we sat at the table to identify what were we going to need to do. And we developed, vacant building lists and contacts and made connection with all of those landlords. But we worked with our member municipalities to understand who is it. We took the information back. So it was 3 people talking instead of, I guess we're probably sitting at 32 communities between Bruce Grey and Huron. That no investor wants to talk to 32 different people. They would rather talk to 3. And even at that, it's better when we as the counties can talk together as one with the businesses. But all of that work is today.
Thank you. Evelyn.
Of the 59 that you have identified, are any of them in Meaford?
I couldn't tell you that, but I will find out. I will look.
Uh,
I just don't have that right in front of me.
Right, but my sense is I doubt.
I'm gonna guess you have a couple of the 59, not of the 7 though, I don't think. But I will find out.
My feeling is because we're coming to the game a little late compared to a lot of the others that, is there any other is there any sense that we should pick up the pace to go through the exercise of identifying potential owners or of land or whatever that would have potential, that kind of thing is that something
Yes,
that we should be doing?
yes.
And it just seems to me because we haven't had, an economic development strategy in place that included the identification of land and resources. Would you recommend that we figure out a way on how to get that done?
I think you want to be working on that even before you have a strategy in place.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and important points, Evelyn. And I just wanted to add that in our official plan, we do have designated 2 properties as our industrial employment lands. One is 20 acres, one is 35 acres. And they are, within proximity of our downtown, not too far from our downtown. So, but they are not owned by the municipality. They are privately owned. It's just that they are, designated as these lands. So there's work to do to determine, I think both owners would sell. We might not like the price, but they would sell. And then it's a determination. These are not serviced, but they are serviceable. The services are close by. So we could pull all of those pieces together, but it would require the will of council and funds. And then we would have 55 acres.
Well, I guess my question is, knowing that this is happening now and that the county is going to try and market potential.
When
for
we're ready.
potential,
Yeah.
more that when people come and say what's available, what needs to be done. If more workup could be done with those and to get ready so that at least the county is in a better position. And we are to answer questions, but it strikes me just for it being sitting in the official plan, if we could do something more proactively to get ready, because once these things, I think it's important as part of that potential growth for adding any economic development within our area. But that's why we need to know what kind of businesses would we want. Just like Southgate, the example I think she provided. Once the community can share with us, these are the kinds of if we're going to build an industrial park, what do we want? Do we want green industry? Do we want, whatever, that type of thing? So, but that strikes me either as a, probably doesn't fit in the portfolio of the two people that are now coming on board, but is that something that we should address?
Dan Matheson would say yes.
Yes, you would.
Yes, I would.
Reed, did you have a question you said?
Well, I understand that that's in the official plan, and it would probably fall into the 59 perhaps, but certainly not in the 7. And so the time element between the investment decision and wanting to cut the ribbon needs to be shortened in every way possible by the municipality, so that if it happened tomorrow, it's not a field, but it's a site. And so that's kind of the point I'm getting at, because I think it's very, very important to attract investment quickly. Thank you.
Throw one more wrinkle in that, because while we're all working on that vision, we are still dealing with a wastewater issue that is even more, just as paramount to facilitate all of that, because we have 3,000 potential new homes coming into the region, and you want to put industry on that as well in the same bucket. And until we get even wastewater concept solved, we're still 3 steps back there.
And you are not unique in that.
Yeah.
It is happening across Grey, it is happening across Ontario, where the servicing component is a significant barrier. And that's part of why we have EPCOR coming to talk to us, so that we can just have that education session of what are all of these different alternative types of things that we can do when it comes to servicing. But, the one thing, as you're thinking of your vision and where you want to go, that if I could plant with you in a conversation we're trying to have, and, it's difficult to be able to have this, is to say, when you are thinking of your servicing capacity, don't just think about housing, think about employment lands too, because there's such a push on housing. Everything is about housing right now, but it can't just be about housing. We have to be thinking of the employment land as well. And that has long been forgotten. So I like where you were going with that, Rob, to be able to say, like, we have to be thinking of both of these things. It is absolutely critical that you're thinking of both of those things as you're going forward.
Okay, I'm being mindful of time here, and you're probably getting tired of standing. So unless anybody has anything further, I'm of great import, and we could have this conversation for another hour, I'm sure. But thank you very much, Savannah, for agreeing to come and speak, and it's always encouraging to have you come, and I'm really looking forward to actually to the last forum that you did was phenomenal, and Dan Matheson was, oh my gosh, he was so invigorating. And I'm looking forward to the next, particularly like you said, if there's a wastewater contingent component to it, that could also be very valuable. But before you go, because I'm jumping all over the place, and so you're going to kill me with the agenda anyway. That's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Just one thing we do have here under items for information, I just wanted you to speak to was the Grey County Tariff Impact Assessment Survey. So if you could just maybe speak to that quickly, because we did just talked about tariffs earlier there, but just so we're aware of kind of what that is, your goal.
Sure, absolutely. So through you, Mr. Chair, we have a business supports page on grey.ca. Oh, there it is right there. This is one of kind of 3 things that we can do right now for tariffs, because again, we don't know what the challenge is. We don't know what the need is going to be, and there are no programs out right now between provincial and federal governments. So our hands are kind of tied in terms of what we can do, but this page is where we're putting information as we get it. So the tariff business impact survey, that is actually from Western Ontario Wardens Caucus. And again, when we all come to the table, all of the counties agreed that we would use this survey and have it available to all of our businesses, so that we can collect information that covers a much broader region. So when the time does come for us to be able to talk to upper levels of government, we have a massive geography of feedback to be able to use. So we are not promoting this as a thing that we want all businesses to do because we do not want to ask them to take their time, but it is there if they want to talk about what's happening. And that way they can provide any information that could be helpful. And we have access as the county to all of the results on the back end for all of Western Ontario wardens. So at the end of everything, we will get something just for Gray, but right now I can log in and see what Brant, Dufferin, Gray, all of the organizations are seeing right across the board. So it is there, and you are welcome to let your businesses know that this is the survey if they do want to share information. So we can bring that back and provide it to our EDOs. And that way you do have it. But surveying is tough. It was like that all through the pandemic, and it is now too. There are limited things we can do, but we do on that same page is the Made in Gray toolkit and resource. Encourage our businesses to download that, use it however they want. We have not put parameters around it, but it is there as a positional marker to say, you know, you are here in Gray County. 'Cause we have a great reputation in this region specifically of supporting one another. Our businesses are really good at building their own local supply chains. So we want to encourage that as much as we can. And that is also included in this business impact survey as well.
Excellent. A great initiative, and thank you very much. Just wanted to get a little clarification on that. And I'm glad you did that because I was going to ask you if you're not marketing it, what would be the best dissemination? And we definitely will try and push that out to our local businesses so they can participate as well.
Yeah, we have it in our newsletters. We have it on social media, but we're not sending it to businesses to say,
Right.
please, please, please fill this in for us. But
Right.
here is something available if and when the time is right for you.
Excellent. Well, thank you once again very much for your time and your
Thank
expertise.
you. And sorry, I did almost take up your entire afternoon.
Okay, Sue, I'll get us back on track a little bit. I did jump into with her presentation because I really did know it was going to take a little bit of time, and I wanted to make sure we had ample time to take advantage of Savannah's time. So because that was a presentation that was going to actually be further later, and there was no deputations. So I'm going to move to the approval of minutes. Everybody did receive the minutes in the agenda package. I'm going to recommend that the minutes of the January 30th, 2025 meeting of the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee be approved as presented. Can I have a seconder, please? Ron, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Ron?
I have a comment through you, Mr. Chair. With respect to those minutes on January 30th, specifically the motion regarding a community engagement coordinator and the funding for that position. I'd like to advise our committee that that position has been approved at council on March the 17th. And I'd like to thank our chairperson, Rob Urich, and vice chair, Shirley Keaveney, for bringing that forth and making a very supportive argument for the approval of that position. So I'd like to thank both of you with respect to that. And then in addition, regarding that position, I'm sure that it will make a lot easier for all of our volunteer organizations to have a contact person to deal with for many of the requirements enhancing the events for Meaford. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you for the recommendation from the committee, because that certainly made it easier to bring that to council. So thank you for that. If there's nothing else, I'll call all in favor of the minutes, please. Thank you very much. That's passed. Point B under the items for consideration. I'm not going to put Kelly on the spot, but she did bring this to my attention, was the Learn to Save Your Town website, which I thought was quite interesting. So I just thought I'd give you an opportunity just to speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So it was just a lunch and learn that came across my desk, and I thought I'd share it with the group. And I attended, let's say, 3/4 of it. It was back in February, I believe. And the group had been doing a rural study each year, collecting similar information. And so they were doing sort of a sharing of findings of a decade worth of these surveys. And I mean, some of it was things we hear frequently about understanding your demographics and maintaining the charm of your downtown and keeping it vibrant, and challenges of small businesses to market themselves and workforce challenges that communities were having. So it was, you know, it does validate that even though you think you're unique, other people are experiencing the same challenges, but they were also presenting some examples. They had a speaker from something called a mashup lab, where they were bringing businesses and groups together, and they were just sharing some examples of things that they've done. And they were really, I think one of the takeaways that I got from it was, you know, being creative with your solutions, not necessarily shying away from some of the newer ideas, and maybe don't always think we have to do it the way we always did it. So I believe that the recording is on the saveyourtown.com website. And I think that was linked in the minutes. So if you're interested, you can check that out.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Items for information. We've already obviously addressed the Grey County Tariff Impact Assessment Survey. So I just at point B here, I just wanted, when we went through the agenda setting, I just thought it was important to talk a little bit about the Chamber of Commerce presentation to council. So for those of you who didn't see it, I would encourage you to go back and either watch that council meeting. If, you know, okay, that might be a bridge too far, but if there was in the agenda, there was a package piece that they had put forth about what their kind of goals are going to be moving forward. And I think council agreed that we felt that that was, you know, very appropriate and exciting, actually, because they've got a lot of ideas about how they want to do this. Council has, I think, as you know, we just we're just in the process of finalizing the budget. In there, we have given some financial support to the chamber, and we are hopeful that they're going to be a really good partner for us moving forward in terms of obviously what we've heard today from Savannah, but also in terms of just the community and Jessica's position, as well as the new community engagement coordinator position. We're hoping that the small business liaison and this should be a really nice fit, that hopefully we can have a cohesive unit that kind of melds and works forward with the community on this. So I don't know if you want to add anything else to that. Shirley and I have had both past experiences, past presidents of chamber. So we've got a soft spot for them to start with, but we truly believe that they are a very valuable resource for our community, and we need to work with them to hopefully try and get them back into a position of power and a great voice in the community.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair, and I think I can only add that, you know, now that we don't have a BIA and we don't have Main Streets, I mean, the Chamber of Commerce is our vehicle outside of the municipalities to support businesses. And we were, as the chair said, very impressed with their strategic direction. So I think it's very appropriate that we invested some extra dollars with them this year and give them a chance to really get out there and support Jessica in her efforts and vice versa. And I believe, Jessica, you mentioned that you will be the municipal liaison with the Chamber of Commerce, so you'll be able to report back to this committee on the actions and successes and so on of the chambers. So I think that conduit will be really important, and we'll look forward to hearing about chamber initiatives through you.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions on the chamber aspect of the agenda? Ron?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I did meet with JD, the chair president of the Chamber of Commerce. I reviewed with him the BR&E study, and they are very interested in collaborating if we go forward with that study.
Excellent. Anything else? Great, thank you. Moving on to point C, items for consideration was just downtown Meaford business meeting debrief a little while back. We know it's been a long, arduous winter, which has definitely had an impact on the small businesses in town. They did have representative met with the mayor and deputy mayor, and I just thought it might be appropriate to give a little bit of a report just on some of that take from the small business community.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, it is a few weeks ago now that the mayor and I met with an owner of a downtown business who was representative of some of the other businesses on the main street. And it really was a plea for help. As the chair has mentioned, it's been a really, really difficult winter for our downtown businesses in particular. Obviously, the weather was such that there were a lot of days when none of us would go out if we didn't have to. And that just had a significant impact. And it was a long, long season. Meaford is a seasonal community. It always has been. But this year, the challenges were such that I think some of our businesses were actually considering whether or not they could continue to keep their doors open. So that's really, really serious. And I think the onus is on all of us to spread the word, to get out and shop local as much as we possibly can. And the recommendation that came from this particular business owner was that we revisit a BIA scenario. This individual felt that if we had a BIA, that organization could offer programs and events and so on that would have a positive impact and that would assist our businesses in being more successful. So to reinstitute a BIA is not that simple. The businesses would have to agree that they wanted to do that because there is an impact to them financially. And if we were going to do that, I think we'd want to expand it beyond the 2 blocks of the downtown. We'd want to take it out to what's currently called Uptown and Northtown and so on, and give those businesses an opportunity to participate. And it would just take considerable time to pull that together. And I'm not sure in this particular climate that businesses would be interested in making that investment, considering, as we just discussed, that we've got a Chamber of Commerce that's heading into new territory, and that we are strongly encouraged to believe that they will be successful. So I think I'm very much behind the chamber at this point. Let's support them, encourage them, attend their events, and do as much as we can to get out and spread the word to support our local businesses and see if we can help to turn our downtown around, because it's been a pretty serious situation. Imagine if you're a shopkeeper, particularly if it's your own shop, and the whole day that you're there, you see one customer, maybe 2, and one of them's just looking and one of them buys one little thing, and you can understand how quickly you get discouraged. So we all have a role in this because we want to attract more retail to our downtown. And if that's going to happen, we need to make sure that we have a vibrancy present and that the businesses that we do have are successful. So we've all got work to do in this.
To that end, I'm going to put you on the spot, Jessica, because I did hear you talking with Savannah just before we had a little conversation. And to that end, the Maiden Gray program. So could you just kind of elaborate a little bit on that and how we can take advantage of that locally?
So through you, your chair, I personally, when I was working downtown at the Refillery, I came to understand that not a lot of the businesses have access to a printer and resources and things. So I took it upon myself to kind of print out the toolkit of the Maiden Gray. I was also handing out, it's that time to get your sign permit as well. So I was doing a bunch of other things as well. So I went around and I explained kind of the concept of the Maiden Gray and gave them the information and printed it out for them. So then they couldn't, have the reason of, oh, well, I don't have a printer and the resources. So they were very open to it. And I've been down this morning actually, and some of them have it up in their windows and things. So I think they're open to it as opposed to something specific to Meaford. I think it makes a really good kind of concept of making it all one for Maiden Gray. We also have been on the website for Meaford. We have the Maiden Gray on there, and then we have the survey from the tariffs as well. So we've been posting that as resources and support for business as well on the municipalities. So yeah, I think the Maiden Gray is really great, and we can just kind of work together with them for it.
One takeaway from that I really like is the fact when you're saying you're going out with like permit due, it's really nice to have but it's carrot and stick. It's really nice to be and we should have more of that where it's not just us you owe us this, and by the way, here's what we're doing for you. I mean, that's important because it does show it's a two-way street and it's a relationship and a partnership that's brilliant. So that's a really good way of doing it. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions, comments to that regard on the downtown business debrief? Okay. I'll move on. Any committee inquiries? All right, we're all talked to. Oh, Shirley.
Never talked out. You should know that, Rob. Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. And it's just a thought that's kind of sat on my mind, and I'm not sure how we could work it into a discussion at this table, but recognizing the destination after the last conversation going in a slightly different direction, the destination that Meaford is becoming, particularly with regards to our restaurants, our eateries. People are traveling distances now and we're becoming recognized for having these great restaurants. And how do we take that and build upon that in a promotional way to also help people recognize that, while they're here to have lunch, that there are, other great shops and activities and events and so on. And just how do we, pull that together and utilize that as an opportunity to promote. If you're coming to eat, do this and do that while you're here. So I just think there's an opportunity there that we can build on, and maybe that's a discussion for another meeting, just to allow people to think about how we can put that together. And Jessica will use her brilliant mind to yeah. We're good. Okay, we got that piece done.
Thank you. There's no other inquiries. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Kelly.
I wondered if for a future agenda, we could have a discussion about how the committee could hear ideas or to give feedback to staff prior to next year's budget. One thing that I noted this year when I was watching the budget process personally is that there was items related to economic development that I hadn't heard through this committee. And I know that the vision of this group is to provide input, not necessarily direction, but it might be beneficial if items that are going to be presented forward for budget are shared at this table for the input, so that council can speak to it and hearing what had been said on that particular item, at least related to the economic development activities.
Certainly. Future meetings, so just under committee inquiries before we go on to these communications and wrap up. Is there anything that anybody would, so when you talk about that as a classic example and having Savannah here, is there anything, for example, would you like to hear the Chamber of Commerce come and make that presentation that they made to council about what their kind of strategic direction is? Would there be value in that to this committee? Was there some other group that you would like to hear from? I mean, we normally go through this at the agenda setting kind of scenario, but I'd like to give everybody a chance to sort of talk about who they'd like to hear from. Great.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps with the limited time that we have in our existing term, we could consider inviting other communities that have undertaken similar projects, either BRNEs or mayor's council people that have repositioned their community, shall we say, to sustain growth and attract visitors. I think there's a lot that are prime examples. I mean, Tilsonburg, Stratford, maybe even our neighboring communities have done some things that are unique to kind of encourage and spur life that we have not considered. So.
Great. Okay. Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like that. And Evelyn, I'm racking my brain for the gentleman's name, but you know who I'm thinking of that we've spoken with before that I'd love to hear from again. Yep. You know who I'm talking about. And just another thought for an upcoming agenda, now that we have heard Savannah speak to the business mix analysis, whether if Jessica had time to kind of put together, you know, a little presentation in relation to that so that we understand what that is and what the role for this committee might be in that, because perhaps we can assist with some of the conversations with businesses or whatever the opportunities are. Jess, I would leave that with you, but just as a thought for an upcoming agenda, if we could provide a further understanding to the committee of what that project is all about and what it might look like and how we can participate.
Oh,
With the fact we're having a new CAO, it would also be helpful to get a perspective on their vision and understanding of economic development and, you know, the roles of committees and staff, whatever.
yes.
Because all successful dev exercises have shown where it was well integrated between council, community support and staff initiatives and how it got all integrated. And so I guess it would help for me anyway. I don't know how others feel, but to get a sense of the orientation for our new CAO.
We definitely want to see where that marriage is going to go. All right, if that's that, then we'll move on to communications. I don't believe we have any today, Sue. Thank you. So the committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments, thoughts, or concerns with members of the committee, the public can send an email to clerk@meaford.ca. When emails are received to this email address, they will be compiled into a correspondence list, which is then distributed to committee members prior to the meeting. The cover sheet of this list will be included on each meeting agenda. The contents of the correspondence list are not included on the public agenda to protect the privacy and personal information of those residents who choose to send in their thoughts and comments. The date of the next meeting is May 21st. Way ahead of you there. Got you that one. So yes, we'll have an agenda setting meeting ahead there, but we will look at some of these suggestions and hopefully we'll come to the next meeting prepared for that. And I thank everyone for coming again today. Thank you for participating. It was a good meeting. And with that, I'll call it adjourned.
I was just going to ask if